Hello.
You're there. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes.
We are live, I think. I'm just checking the stream here on my
Okay.
phone, make sure it's audio's coming through.
You're there. Hello.
Yes.
Okay, it's working. Just give me 1 minute, Carrie, and I'm going to. One thing I don't know here about Hangouts on Air is if the chat from YouTube comes through on the Hangout or if it's exclusive only to us in the Hangout. So let me just check that out here. Looks like we've got a couple of viewers. Okay, so the chat. Carrie, I don't know if you want to join the chat. The chat, you have to connect through on YouTube.
Okay.
Okay, so the chat.
Hang on, I'm just looping there. Okay. Hi, Jessica. Jessica's joined the chat, it looks like. Carrie, once you get in the chat on YouTube, let me know. You'll just have to pause the video so it doesn't, you don't hear yourself echoing back.
Okay. I see Jessica. Oh, I think I'm in it.
Okay. Yeah, you're on YouTube. So, and there you are. I see your chat message as well. So, Jessica, yeah, we're going to, this live stream, we're going to, it's going to be Carrie and I. We're going to go through the court case, a little bit of the timeline to catch us up to speed, and then have a little bit of Q&A, and just kind of open discussion about the Vegas shooting. So that's kind of the plan. Carrie and I will monitor the chat and kind of respond to chat messages as they come through. But you'll just hear the sounds of our voices. Hi, MF. Welcome. So, Carrie, let's get started. So, Carrie and I met through Twitter, I think, mostly around the court case. And we've been kind of joining forces a little bit to kind of go over the court case and monitor that, the court case regarding the evidence. Carrie, is there anything you want to, we didn't really talk about this previously, but is there anything you want to share with kind of how you came into the Vegas investigation, or do you want to share your Twitter handle or anything like that so people can follow you?
Well, I came into the investigation, starting basically October 2nd. I woke up to, just devastating stories about what happened in Vegas, and it just kind of touched me. And then, as I'm following the story, I'm seeing, oh, that doesn't make sense. No, that doesn't make sense. Why are they saying it like that? So then, that kind of got me going more into the investigation. And plus, just the fact that, 58 lives were lost, and it was really senseless. And I think that their families deserve answers, as well as all of the survivors. So
Awesome.
that's where I'm at.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's, that it's like the story of many of us. I think it sounds like is I'm just kind of the same way. Just I woke up, I was sleeping when it happened, and then I woke up the next morning, and you get the news alerts on your phone, and I just started digging into it, and I, like many other people, expected, just like we've seen with many other shootings, that we would start to get footage, we would start to get information and evidence, and then that we would have information about the motive, and then it would just be like, well, that's unfortunate, and another mass shooting, even though it was the biggest one, and then we would kind of all, I don't want to say move on, but we would, kind of gain an understanding of that and figure out what we could do next to try to prevent it. That didn't happen, like you said. It's like, my questions were just piled on with more questions as the LVMPD continued to, it's what seemed like cover up information about it or withhold information. And I didn't think that was acceptable. So great. I'm glad that I met you. I think that it's been great to join forces with you in this. And so thank you for that. And let's get started here. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to share my screen here. Let me see if this works. There we go. And I'm just checking here the live stream just to make sure everybody on the live stream can see see my screen as well. Okay, it looks like it's showing up there. Okay, so I think what we're going to do here, we're going to kick off with this video. This particular video is a news report from 8 Las Vegas Now that kind of goes over the original order by Judge Richard Scotty regarding the evidence. So we're just going to watch this, and then we're going to dive into kind of a timeline of events. So without further ado, let's kick this one off.
A judge orders the release of more evidence related to the 1 October massacre, and this includes 911 calls, body camera video, dash cam footage, dispatch interviews, and a lot more. The ruling is in response to a second lawsuit filed against Metro by a number of news organizations. Now, last week, a different judge ordered the police department to release search warrant documents. AJ's now reporter Karen Castro is here with what is going to happen next in this case. Yeah, so Metro won't be making the records public all at once. Instead, a judge is ordering them to release the evidence in chunks as they make redactions to protect victims' identities. Attorneys for Metro have continuously fought to keep all documents related to the shooting confidential, but so far they haven't had any luck.
Decision report, but we don't release everything associated with that because this is a continuing investigation.
During the weekly segment of Cover Joe, Sheriff Joe Lombardo makes the same claim the police department's attorney made before a judge, saying Metro is not opposed to releasing the evidence, it's just a matter of when.
So 3 months later, you have to have the specificity to explain why drugs should be here. Parallel ongoing investigation.
Yes, to the extent, Your Honor, that the department is conducting its investigation. We don't stop an investigation because there is
News organizations began requesting records hours after the shooting. By state law, Metro is obligated to respond within 5 days. Attorneys representing news outlets told the judge the police department not only violated Nevada's Public Records Act, but also never justified how the release of the documents would compromise their investigation.
The idea that they can just delay and delay and delay until they say their investigation is done is not at all squared with the Public Records Act.
For the second time in a matter of days, a judge rules against the police department and orders the release of 1 October records. But there is still one question not answered by any of the evidence.
We're struggling with the motive of the suspect, and and it's troublesome for me, for the police department and the public.
In at least 3 separate court rulings, judges have decided to release evidence related to 1 October, but now the widow,
Until they say
Sorry, I think I might have skipped ahead there.
Public Records Act, but also never justified how the release of the documents would compromise their investigation.
the idea that they can just delay and delay and delay until they say their investigation is done is not at all squared with the Public Records Act.
For the second time in a matter of days, a judge rules against the police department and orders the release of 1 October records. But there is still one question not answered by any of the evidence.
We're struggling with the motive of the suspect, and and it's troublesome for me, for the police department and the public.
In at least 3 separate court rulings, judges have decided to release evidence related to 1 October, but now the widow of Metro Police Officer Charleston Hartfield is suing 2 news outlets over personal information and autopsy reports. A court hearing on that matter is scheduled for Monday. Right.
All right. Carrie, you back?
Yes.
Okay, great. So after having watched that, let's kind of start to go through the timeline. Just for everybody that's watching, Carrie put together this timeline with the highlights of the court cases. So we're just kind of walk through this, and she'll add some comments as we go through. And then after that, we'll have a little bit of Q&A. Carrie?
Okay. Hi, everybody. So starting 10/2 and all the way up till 10/13, the LVMPD was holding multiple press conferences daily, and slowly over that time frame, it got down to one press conference daily, and then it was kind of like they just stopped. There was a point in there on 10/3 where the undersheriff Kevin McMahill showed a few minutes of footage that was compiled from one of the 67 body cameras worn by Metro officers on that night, the night of the shooting. But I can't help but feel like maybe some of that was along the lines of the footage that was recently released by the New York Times. You know, they released what they wanted to release to fit their story. So 10/13 was the last LVMPD FBI press conference. And then by 10/26, Las Vegas authorities are basically not sharing any information with the public, less than a month after it happened. In that time frame, all of these media outlets were requesting information from them. So the Nevada Public Records Act says that people that request the, people that request public records, they have to be responded to within 5 business days by the entity that they're requesting it from. So some of these news outlets, they got responses. Some of them didn't. Some of them had to put in subsequent requests to try to get that footage, and none of it was released to them ever. It was all under the guise of it's an ongoing investigation. So 11/2, November 2nd, the media files a lawsuit against LVMPD for failure to release public records. They were looking for 911 calls, body-worn camera footage, surveillance footage, evidence reports. So 7 news organizations are, at that point suing LVMPD for that information. And then 12/28, there is a hearing set for February 7th. And at that hearing, the judge does say that LVMPD needs to start releasing all evidence on a rolling basis over the next 30 days. That's when LVMPD's lawyer says, well, we can't do that, we need more time. So he extended it to 6 months, over the next 6 months, but they were to immediately start that rolling production of releasing evidence starting February 7th. A month later, there's a status check with Judge Scotti. Still no evidence released. Maggie McCletchy argues in court that even though Metro has appeal rights, that doesn't mean they shouldn't have started working on producing the documents, doing the redactions and everything that needs to be done before everything can be released. They haven't even started to this day preparing that evidence for release. Just one moment, please.
Sure. I think what's interesting about that, and we saw this in the video, is that the LVMPD's position was that if they started to release any evidence, that they wouldn't have the right to appeal. So that was one of the things I noticed in that video and in my research, is that their hesitance to start releasing any piece of evidence was because they felt that they would be forfeiting their right for appeal. So that answered some questions for me as to why we don't have anything.
Absolutely. They want to be able to, they can't get back things that they've released that happened in the Hartfield case where everything was already released, and then a judge said, no, well, you have to give back some of that information. And they were like, no, the press was like, no, we don't have to give that back. It was already released. And they actually won in Supreme Court on that as well, the media, for that separate autopsy report case. So, they should be releasing documents no matter what, but they think they're going to win this appeal that they have pending.
Mhm.
So starting, let's see, on March 12th, actually Judge Scotti asks the parties to waive disqualification. So basically his impartiality to the case is called into question because of the Las Vegas Review-Journal's harsh article about Scotti's order regarding that Hartfield autopsy report. So the Las Vegas Review-Journal, who this was, the impartiality was pertaining to, they said, no, go ahead, we think you can be impartial. And Las Vegas Metro Police Department did not waive the disqualification, meaning that Judge Scotti had to recuse himself. So on March 16th, he did recuse himself. And on that very same day, as soon as Judge Scotti recused himself, LVMPD entered a motion to stay, put a hold on Judge Scotti's order, and a motion to reconsider Judge Scotti's ruling for them to release the public records. I can't help but think that may be a coincidence. I can't say it with certainty, but I think they wanted to get another judge in there. They saw an opportunity and thought maybe they could get another judge to see it their way. Then 319, Judge
Yeah,
Miley yes,
sorry to
go
stop you
ahead.
there, Carrie. That speaks to the after, and you're about to get into Judge Miley, but her review of the case and commenting on it as gamesmanship. I think that's an example of that. I think them trying to swap judges for a judge that might favor them. It definitely seems like they were playing the courts to the best of their ability to try to get the case, favored for them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think they pounced right on that and thought maybe they were going to get somewhere, and they just didn't. So we get March 19th, Judge Stephanie Miley is assigned to the case. And then there's a status check. I believe that was on the 10th. But before that even happens, Las Vegas Metro Police Department submit their appeal to the Supreme Court. That was on March 30th. They submitted their appeal. So I guess they're just kind of going at it from all angles, trying to get this order taken back, or they're trying to get it so that they don't have to follow the original order in any way they can.
Right.
410 is the hearing, and in that hearing, Judge Miley accuses LVMPD of gamesmanship, like Weg just had said, and says that it seems like this is a game to LVMPD. And the quote from her from that court date is, "I'm very frustrated because I think that's gamesmanship that's going on here. All of this could have been done months ago. I mean, it's now months since the shooting occurred, and it's still the same delay, delay, delay. When one technique doesn't work, then you switch to another one, and it's very concerning for the court." So that's, the district court's judge's opinion on this whole thing that LVMPD is doing.
Quick question
also-
about that.
yes.
Just your
Sure.
own thoughts. Do you think, after having dealt with Stephanie Miley, do you think that if they had known they were going to get her, that they would have just kept Richard Scotti? I mean, I think that they traded out Scotti for even harsher judge onto their case.
Absolutely. Absolutely. From the one recording of one of their hearings with Judge Scotti, he was very laid back. He was not accusing them of any of this stuff. And, I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot definitely with that, because Judge Miley is very vocal about what she thinks LVMPD is doing. So yeah, I think they definitely they made a mistake
Yeah.
for on their own part, but it's good for us, good for
Oh,
the public,
absolutely.
and good for the, you know, she went right to it. She said, no, we're not going to play these games. So yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry to interrupt there.
Yeah. No, that's okay. And so on that same date, um, LVMPD, now this is April 10th. And remember, their main goal, their main reason for not releasing these documents is it's an ongoing investigation. Well, April 10th, they admitted in open court that since Douglas Haig's name has been released, there is no longer an ongoing investigation. And yet they still continue to withhold those documents and all the evidence. So you really kind of have to wonder what else is going on, because that was their main excuse for most of the time. But now they're bringing in, oh well, we're gonna give out our investigative techniques if we release everything.
Right. Yeah. There were really three main arguments they had. Right. The first
Yes.
was ongoing investigation, and then that basically got shut down by the accidental "quote unquote" release of Douglas Haig's name. Who knows if we have if we have somebody on our side inside the LVMPD that mistakenly did not redact that name prior to release. So there was that. Then there was the fees, right? They were like, and the burden on them. So I would tie that into
Yes.
kind of one that, hey, this is going to cost us way too much in both manpower or person power. I want to be PC and cost, right? Just time and stuff like that. And they
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that they could charge somebody for it up to $500,000 estimated. And that was turned down. And then I think most recently, and maybe this is woven throughout the cases as well, the investigative techniques is, and we actually might see this as we can kind of continue forward here. They might use this argument to not release certain evidence. I imagine that they might, but that's the most recent one. But if you look at the court histories on other cases filed under the same act, the Nevada Public Records Act, it has always favored the public's access to these things. And if it's a well-known investigative technique, then that's something they can't use as an argument to prevent release of evidence. It has to be basically a secret technique, and I don't know how many secret techniques the Las Vegas Police Department is using.
Oh, well, yeah, and also, I mean, think about it. Just on, the crime channels alone, with all these crime shows, true crime shows that you have out, they're telling us every last bit of their investigative techniques. They're saying, there might be some stuff that they hold back, but we're getting a full explanation of everything that happened. So I just can't think that I can't think of what there would be that they have done that the public doesn't kind of already have an idea of. That's one of the police in general's investigative techniques.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
So-
I could imagine maybe the FBI has some technology they don't want to share or things like that, but come on, the Las Vegas Police Department, are they using special secret investigative techniques? Strongly doubt that.
Yeah, I doubt that as well.
Hey, Carrie, people are asking
yes.
who you are in the chat. Is it all right if we just share your Twitter handle so people can follow you if they want?
Oh, yes.
So Carrie's Twitter handle, and I'll post it here in the chat, is at Mrs_story 33, MRS_story STORY 33. I'll put it in the chat window as well.
Okay. Yes, I'm just another citizen that sees that something isn't right here and that the truth needs to be brought out no matter what. So, not really anybody, but
Yeah, I think you're in good company. I think that's most of us in this community are just, we're concerned citizens that, if we don't see, and that thing, thank goodness we're in America where, if we see that people aren't doing their job, we can take action around it. You know what I mean? We're not going to get shut down or anything like that.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Nevada Public Records Act and even any state public records laws, it's for that reason. It's for people to be able to hold their government accountable, and it's for that transparency. And that transparency just isn't there in this case. It's troubling. It's very troubling. Did they do something wrong? Is there something more to it? You just don't know what it is.
Yeah, and if you look at the Nevada Public Records Act, it actually has woven throughout the language of that that it's about it's about democracy and transparency is a part of democracy. And actually, you see this in some of the court proceedings as well. How important that is to our democracy that we have transparency and the Las Vegas Police Department's attempts to block this is, I don't want to say 100% un-American, but it makes you wonder. You know what I mean? It makes you wonder what their game is and how it plays into, how we work in America.
Absolutely. I'll just kind of wrap up here with the last few points. I just think it's important for everybody to know the fight that, I say we, and I do believe it's we because we can't all be in Vegas, and these are the people that are fighting for public records, which is us. We are the public, even though we're not all in Vegas. We're the public, and I think everybody should know about this, and all the stall tactics and things that are going on throughout this whole thing. So also in the 410 hearing, I'm sorry, let's see.
You're fine.
It looks like LVMPD, after that 410 hearing, kind of saw how everything was going. They were not getting this other judge that was just going to see everything their way. So they ended up putting in a motion to reconsider the order again, and a motion to stay, meaning they don't want to have to follow that order. So at this point, they have their appeal in, and they have their motion to reconsider and their motion to stay. So after that, the next really big thing that happens is April 5th. The appeal is with the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court assigns the case to the settlement program, which means that the parties involved, the attorneys and the media and LVMPD, have to try to mediate their differences to get a resolution before it can be seen by the Supreme Court, before the Supreme Court judges will hear their oral arguments. I don't know how they make that decision, but I can't see this being a great case to go to mediation because what LVMPD wants and what the media wants is so far off from each other. So we'll see how that goes. And that first meeting with the settlement judge is going to be May 10th. So we have that coming up just in, let's see, a week and a half or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, week after next.
Yeah. So then on 420, LVMPD requested an emergency stay order, pending their appeal. And that's with the Supreme Court. And then the big thing that happened is on 427, which was Friday, the Supreme Court judges denied LVMPD's emergency motion to stay. So that means they immediately are to begin following the original order from February that they have never followed since that time. They need to begin releasing documents immediately. So it looks like one of the first things that's going to be released from letters between the attorneys that I've seen will be body-worn camera footage from 10/1 between 10 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. And that's going to be from the first, they're even more specific in their request of asking for the first people that encountered room 32, 135 that night. So that's probably going to be the first thing released.
And I'll pull up that document here, or the email. So it was, U.S. mail and email letter that requested specifically and referred back to a previous request from March to have the first evidence released be the body cam footage of the first officer who entered into Stephen Paddock's hotel suite/room. Okay. All right. Thank you, Carrie, was there anything else you wanted to say about the timeline?
No, I think that's it. I'm just glad everybody got to know what has been going on since this whole court case began and how much LVMPD has been dragging their feet. And I think that got across, hopefully. So yeah, go ahead.
Cool. Great. So I think, let me just pull up my little agenda here. So I think the next thing we wanted to do is just kind of open up the discussion. If you have questions of Carrie or I, or just an open question, something you want to discuss, just type it in the chat window on YouTube, and we can kind of take those as they come up. What are your thoughts about how the LVMPD tried to block release of the evidence? Also, what are your thoughts about if we'll get the evidence tomorrow with the body cam footage or not? I know one news article actually said that they wouldn't start releasing it immediately. And you and I had discussed that, Carrie, a little bit. If they don't start discussing it immediately, you said your opinion is that they would be in contempt of court.
Yes, absolutely. So because that order from the 7th is what we're going on, and that says to immediately begin releasing those documents, if they don't follow that order, they'll be in contempt. Now, what I'm trying to find out, and I can maybe let you know, Weg, and you can let people know, or however we can get the information out. I'm trying to find out what being sanctioned means, and what will happen to LVMPD if they refuse to comply and they're found in contempt, which they will be if they don't release these documents. So
Yeah, and
we'll see.
So to your point, I mean, if the sanctions aren't bad, they could choose to not release evidence and take on those sanctions, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know that in another case with Las Vegas Review Journal and Clark County Coroner's Office, John Freudenberg, he was required to pay Las Vegas Review Journal $32,000. So I'm not sure if it's going to be a monetary sanction. I'm still trying to figure that out, and I'll make sure I keep you updated as well.
Yeah, thanks.
On that.
Yeah, I wonder if it might be something like, limiting their funding from the state government or something like that.
Could be. And I know they're asking for more this year. I'm sorry. Yeah, they were asking for, I don't know, I think a couple million more for LVMPD. So yeah, maybe that'll get the fire under them to get this release going, because they haven't even started preparing anything.
Yeah, even though Judge Miley had said previously, start preparing because it's going to come out. So start now. There's no reason that they shouldn't have, because it is going to be released ultimately. But it does sound like they haven't really started any of it.
No, because at one of the last court dates, I believe it was with Miley, Jackie Nichols, one of the LVMPD attorneys, said, well, Judge, we are going to have to really start going through all this footage, and this is an onerous task, and it's kind of like, okay, well, if you had started back in February, almost 3 months ago, you would probably be about halfway done at least, and you would have started releasing. So why are they not already doing that? I really don't know.
Yeah.
They're just very concerned about that money that they want media to pay for the release of the documents and for the preparation of the release. It seems to be a big sticking point for them. that
Yeah.
money.
Do you think they really want the money, or they were just using that as, an additional reason to push out the date of the release?
I think both.
Yeah.
I think both because Maggie McCletchy, the amazing Maggie McCletchy, that's the lawyer for Las Vegas Review Journal. She thinks that it is a lot about the money for them. I don't think it's all they're after. I think they just don't want to release it, but I think that they would be gladly accept that $300,000 to $500,000 that they were asking for from the media. So I can't say for sure, but
Yeah. So we can only speculate, I suppose.
yeah.
So for United States USA said the article stated they wouldn't release video per their spokeswoman. I don't understand tomorrow's process. Yeah, I mean I did see that article as well. It was a spokesperson for the LVMPD that said they wouldn't be releasing it immediately, and that there was I think in that same article and a couple other articles, that there was a meeting scheduled for tomorrow between the Las Vegas Police Department and the Review Journal lawyers to discuss the release process. Body worn camera. Oregon Outback says. Oregon Outback says body worn camera footage from 10 p.m. is too late. I want to see body worn camera footage on 38th floor starting about 9:40 p.m. That all of it should come out eventually. I think they were just wanted the initial entry as the first thing that they get. Do you agree with that, Carrie?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Because one of the other aspects of this case and the reason that the foot dragging was occurring was because they wanted the scope narrowed. They wanted the scope of what was being requested narrowed. So I think this kind of complies with what LVMPD wants so that they can actually get something. And I think that's a lot of what people would love to see. The public wants to see that body worn camera footage. So they kind of, requested that first.
Yeah, and I think that's great that they did that. I mean, I think it will answer a lot of questions if we actually get it. And I think it will dispel a lot of the conspiracy theories out there that say Paddock was alive when they breached the room. If we actually see the footage that they've requested, we'll know. We should know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And hopefully we would see the secondary room breach and the accidental discharge, the audio from that, either video or audio from that.
Absolutely.
Let's
Yeah,
see. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was looking through some documents last night. It looks like that secondary breach that went into 32134 was at 1126. So we would definitely see that in that scope of requests that they made. So
Okay.
that would be, and it happened, that accidental discharge, like you said, it happened right as that happened. So we'd be able to see that. That would clear a lot of information up, I think.
I think so too. MF asks, does this include any MGM footage or just LVMPD body cam, 911 calls, etc.? Do you want to answer that one, Carrie?
So the whole court case does involve everything. Let's see.
And I'm pulling up that number 27 from the document here.
Yes. Was that page 6 you said?
Page 8 of the one that I'm looking at. The page number at the
Okay.
bottom of the document is page 5 of 7.
Okay. So the overall request in the, in the request and in the original order is 911 calls, body camera data, as well as dash cams, which they do not have in Las Vegas, but I guess they were just trying to include everything. CCTV videos, evidence logs, dispatch information, interview reports, search warrant returns, affidavits of probable cause, purchase orders and no bid contracts, and information on any weapons obtained during the investigation into the October 1 massacre. So it is an order that everything needs to be released. At this point, because there's so much of everything, they're narrowing it down to, okay, this is what we want released first.
Yeah, I mean, so to answer MF's question, it does sound like if Metro Police took in the MGM security camera footage as part of evidence, that it should be released ultimately. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I actually, if I can find something, just one moment. You can go ahead, Wag,
Yep.
and then.
Yeah, Las Vegas Shooting asked who you are. Carrie is somebody I met on Twitter. I'm just gonna, I'll pull up your Twitter page here on the screen so people can see it. She's been tracking the court case much closer than I have for much longer than I have. So I've relied on her a lot for questions that I have. And she's also awesome at researching the case and reading the documents. Yeah. I'm getting there, but you're way ahead of me.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot of Googling of
Legal terms, yeah.
legal terms.
Yeah.
So I actually have a list of what LVMPD claims to not have. I should also mention that throughout this whole court case, since February 7th and before, the judges and the media attorneys have been asking LVMPD to give a list of everything that they do have so that they can narrow down their request. Right now, it's what they are calling a blanket order, which says just release everything. And from that point, LVMPD has not ever given that list that even a judge has asked for. They have never supplied that to them to tell them what they have so that they can say, okay, we want this first and this, and then, it would be a helpful tool and it would help eliminate some of the problem that they're having with the blanket order, as they call it, but they've refused to do that. What they did do was they gave a letter of what they do not have. So one of the first things is dash cam. LVMPD officers do not have dash cams. The evidence logs, LVMPD says that the FBI created and maintained the evidence logs relating to the 1 October incident, and that includes any information obtained on the weapons of Stephen Paddock. So this release isn't going, even though it was requested, the FBI has that, so LVMPD has no jurisdiction to release it. They don't have possession of it. And then, let's see. They did mention briefly here. Let me just take a look. Okay, so as far as for the search warrants, we all know those were released back in, I want to say the end of January. So they're saying, that's already been released, so we're not going to release any more on that. I believe that there are more search warrants. I don't know that for a fact. I'm still trying to look into that and find out because I have the search warrant numbers. So I'm trying to figure out how they make their search warrant numbers and then go from there to see if there's any missing ones. So maybe that can be an update at some point. And then the CCTV videos, the LVMPD is in possession of 390 hours of the CCTV videos from the hotels that Stephen Paddock was in. So they do have CCTV.
Awesome. And Jessica asks, what measures are taken to protect body cam recordings from tampering, etc.? Is there a backup to the backup? I don't think we know how LVMPD is storing the body cam recordings. Jessica, I'm not sure we can answer that. Any thoughts on that, Carrie?
Unfortunately, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. That's something that I can definitely start looking into, though, because that is a very good question, and I'd like to know that as well.
I can tell you, Jessica, that they did reveal some information about how they plan to redact the body cam recordings, and it's like this. So if the police officer interacted with somebody, so if they came up to somebody and interacted with them directly, then they plan to blur out that person's face and then redact any personal information they gave them. So if they asked them for their driver's license and their date of birth, and some information like that, then that will get redacted. However, if the body cam footage shows people running, people far away, then those people shouldn't have to redact any of that. So there is some. It's going to take them time to go through, blur out the faces if the police officers interacted with people. I know that wasn't your question, but at least it's something. Let's see.
And actually, just touching on that, what you just said, one of the court hearings with Judge Miley even said, there can't be that much to redact because there's not going to be that much interaction, person on person, individual interaction on that body worn camera footage. And she also mentioned the fact that had Stephen Paddock lived, there would be a trial going on, and all of this information that they're withholding would be already known to the public. It would already be disclosed, or it would be in the process of being disclosed throughout the criminal and civil trials.
Right. Yep. Las Vegas shooting mentioned the cameras outside the windows. So what I've heard, and I haven't verified this myself, is that there are what are called suicide cameras on top of the Mandalay Bay. I believe they're on the roof and they point downward. And if that's what you're talking about, Las Vegas shooting. So if they took those in as evidence, I would think that they would have provide those as well. I don't know if we'll see a gun barrel sticking out the window or muzzle flashes, though. That would be interesting. I suspect that there is some kind of evidence that shows there was only at least one gun being shooting out of windows, because LVMPD was quite certain of that fact after the, in the early hours, but we shall see. I'm just catching up here on the comments. Somebody said, Oregon Outback said, I want to see the body-worn camera footage of the police rescuing Brian Hodge from the bushes. Hey, if one of those police officers is wearing a body-worn camera, it should be there. It should be there. Las Vegas shooting said, I would like to know if Paddock purchased tickets for Route 91 and attended on day 1 or 2. That might come out in some of the evidence.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard anything about that. That's a really good question, though. I wonder if he did.
Yeah, if he wanted to keep a low profile at these concerts that he booked hotels around, I think that would be one way to do it, right? To just have a ticket, have a wristband, and you can walk around, around all those people. But from the footage that was released by MGM, I didn't see any with Paddock having a wristband on. Eric Peters says, love the request for 2 hours footage, first person entering the room. Yeah, that's what I was saying too. I think the review journal lawyer she's awesome. And I think that was really insightful to have requested that prior, banking on that the stay would get denied and then having already requested it prior. I think that's, that's thinking a couple moves ahead, and you got to give her credit. And I had her, it's this Maggie McCletchy. She's on Twitter as Vegas Maggie at ESQ. I think she's awesome for having done that.
Oh, the time of the windows being broken.
Oh, yeah.
That's a
That might
really
show up
good
on
point,
some of the
too.
CCTV footage, or the suicide cameras. Somebody said, let's see, where was it? Eric Peters said, was it discussed if this is enforceable? I mean, this is Nevada Supreme Court decision. I would say it's absolutely enforceable, or they'll be in contempt of court.
Absolutely. And then they're going to have to, go into the Supreme Court when, I mean, just from my opinion, this is just my opinion, this mediation that they're being required to go to isn't going to get us anywhere. It's not going to get anywhere. There's not going to be any middle ground, I don't think, that Maggie McCletchy is going to let occur where, oh, okay, well, then you guys don't want to release this, that's fine. So when it inevitably goes in front of the Supreme Court judges, they're going to have to answer to them why they weren't following the order. So
Yeah,
that's something I'd love to see, the recording of that hearing.
Yeah, she doesn't seem like she's keen to compromise in any way. They're basically getting everything they wanted. It just took a long time to get it.
And she never gave up. She's awesome.
Yeah, she's a rock star.
Absolutely.
Flat Earth Squirrel Girl asked a question about the map. To answer your question, Flat Earth Squirrel Girl, that's fun to say. I will pull up the map and I'll show you really quickly the answer to your question, which is she's saying that she can no longer see the victims on the map. They're actually what are called layers on the map, and you can check the layers for the victims. I will show you that real quick. So here's the map. Along the left-hand side here are all the different layers. So there's videos taken on foot, videos taken from inside vehicles, places of interest, Las Vegas Village venue features, and victims. So if you're missing one of them, you just check the layer and it will appear onto the map. This is useful if you want to only see the victims, and you can just have only the victims checked. Or if you want to see the victims and places of interest, or victims and Las Vegas Village venue features, you can have both of those checked, and that way you can find out where the victims are. If you watched my live stream yesterday and the one previously on the map, I discussed a little bit about how these are intentionally matched up with the FIT report, even though there's some debate about how correct these are. This is really just a reference, so you don't have to look at the FIT report to find them. We might sweep back and add some additional icons here for when we have evidence that a body was actually somewhere else and then moved. I think one example was a gentleman over here. I think it was this one. Christopher Lewis Roybal was actually spotted here near the stage at one point. The body was, but the FIT report shows it over here. So I hope that answers your question. If you're doing it from a mobile device, you can still check and uncheck layers. It's a little bit different, but just look through your options. I'm a little bit behind here on the chat, so I'm just trying to skip down a little bit. Yeah, I know this community, and given the LVMPD's history with things, I mean, there's a lot of concern about if we'll get all the evidence, two, if they'll edit it out, if they'll redact things that they shouldn't redact. We don't know that will be the case now, but it's not just us that's going to be watching for that kind of thing. It's going to be the press as well.
And since this original, or this request for the first set of footage from the body worn camera, that's actually going to be sent to Maggie McCletchy. I don't think she's going to let anything get past her. And that's something that she could possibly bring up in the Supreme Court in the mediation or the hearing that comes after. So I just don't see her letting anything like that just go by. She's a very strong supporter of public information. She's done many cases, and I think she knows what to look for, and she won't let that happen, hopefully.
Yeah, I agree. MF asked any detailed ballistics evidence to be included. One of the things listed in the court documents was information on any weapons obtained during the investigation. Ballistics information might come through on that. I'm not sure.
So they're claiming that the FBI has all that information. So in this LVMPD, this is just with LVMPD. So anything that the FBI has is not going to be in play here. And they claim to not have any of that information. So they can't release that.
Interesting. I guess because there wasn't a criminal investigation, the LVMPD may not have felt that they needed ballistics information. But since FBI was kind of leading, looking into if there was involvement with terrorism, that they might have done their research on that. Eric Peters is mentioning a 2-hour request enforceable. I'm not aware of a 2-hour request. There was an 8-hour request. Here, I'm going to pull it up on the screen. This one, in no more than 8 business hours. Is that enforceable? That's a good question. Their request is such that, is 8 hours, but what do you think, Carrie? Is that enforceable, or is that more of their own request for timeline?
I think it's absolutely enforceable because the order, the original order is that blanket statement of release everything. This is just narrowing that down, just like LVMPD has asked them to do. This is such a huge order. We can't get this all done in the time frame. So I think absolutely this is going to be enforceable because this is just the first request out of many requests, and they're ordered to release everything. So I think this, while it just was in an email, it absolutely is going to be something that is enforceable because of that original order.
Gotcha.
I don't know if I'm explaining it correctly.
Yeah, I think so. Well, they're way past the Nevada Public Records Act requires a response and release within 5 business days, I believe. So if you look at when was this originally requested, the day after or a couple of days after the shooting, they're way behind that. So
Oh, yeah.
I think they'll kind of have to cater to these requests.
Yeah, I think that the order itself just opens up public records requests. Of course, the media is going to be the first ones to get it, but that order is like, okay, here, the court says you have to release this stuff. And then the letter says, okay, you have to release this stuff. Here's what we want first.
All right. Jessica's asking about where the map is. I'll post a link to the map, Jessica, in the chat here so you can access it.
It's an amazing resource, that map.
Yeah, I think it will be helpful for a lot of the research people are doing.
I see a question about the autopsy reports, or do you mind
No,
if
go.
I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead and just read the question and answer it. Sure.
Okay, Flat Earth Squirrel Girl, is it possible the autopsy reports are fakes? I don't think that the autopsy reports are fakes. I think that it just in general, it was incomplete autopsy reports. If you've been able to go through them and read them, you'll see that some of the autopsy reports are several pages long, and then many of the other autopsy reports are 4 pages long, 5 pages long. So I think they released the real autopsy reports, but I think either they didn't do proper examinations on everybody as they were supposed to, or they did and they didn't.
What was that? You cut out there at the end, Carrie.
So I think either uh, they didn't do full autopsies on all the victims, or they did and they didn't put all that information in. For whatever reason. Maybe there was, I can only speculate that maybe there was evidence of close-up shooting. I don't know why they would do that, but it looks like very incomplete autopsy reports, but I believe they're real.
Yeah, I do too. YouTube user Paladin did a really good video yesterday. He's actually putting together a spreadsheet of all the autopsy information, and there's a ton of gaps. So go watch his video. Let's see.
So for United States and Las Vegas shooting are talking about that fine that John Fudenberg, the Clark County coroner, he was fined. That's correct. It was $32,000. And I'm actually going to be emailing the PIO tomorrow to try to get an answer on that. So I will let WEG know once I find out that information, if I can find out that information.
Awesome. Yeah, and if you tweet about it, I'll retweet anything you put up. My Twitter is Nostradamus. I'll post it in the chat window. If you're on Twitter, follow both of us and you'll get that information. You'll be the first to know. Okay, we're a little bit over an hour. I think we've answered all the questions. Carrie, thank you very much for going through going through your timeline and for all the work that you did on putting that together. Really do appreciate and answering all the questions. For everybody listening and everybody that comes on here later, if this is something that interests you in the court case, we can do more of these as more court information is released, if that interests you. And then when the evidence starts to come out, we can kind of discuss that as well. So just leave a comment if that's something that interests you, and we'll continue to do these.
Thank you for having me, WEG.
Yeah.
I'm glad I can put my efforts towards getting some answers possibly in this whole thing. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Carrie. All right. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much.